All right, welcome. Let's start with introductions. My name is Dana Garrison, founder of Block Falcon. We're an advisory that actually helps projects with fundraising, exposure, community building. So I'm going to have my esteemed panelists go ahead and introduce themselves and what they do.
Hi, I'm Kevin Shum from MyEG. I'm actually helping MyEG to set up the blockchain services within the company, as well as to start a blockchain academy for the education ecosystem in Malaysia.
Hi, Kevin. Hello, my name is Hizam. I'm from Telecom Malaysia, heading a new group that was established to drive the digital transformation from within Telecom Malaysia, hence the interest in blockchain.
Beautiful.
Hey all, I'm Dinesh, so I'm from Catcha Group. So we are a venture builder in the region. We've been building digital businesses for the last 20 years. You probably might not have heard of us, but you probably heard of some of our brands like iProperty, Carlist, iFlix, and we're spending some time looking into the blockchain space to see how we can solve some of the problems we've been seeing over the last 20 years.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Warren Liao. I work for a company called Imagine Group. Principally, we sell stock images and content online. And at the current moment, we're looking into blockchain as a way for us to improve the ability for us to track copyright licensing from the point of source to the point of consumption.
Thank you. So let's talk about blockchain usefulness and adoption. Why should established businesses and corporations consider adopting blockchain? Anyone that wants to start, go ahead.
I think over the past couple of days, you probably have heard enough about blockchain and what it does. I think it's also very important to understand what it doesn't do, right? As a company, I think MyEG group of companies do not just look at using blockchain for the services that we do, which most of you would know as e-government services. Very often than not, we actually look at all the other businesses that we also do that you might not be aware with. For instance, buying and selling cars, right? For instance, things like property that we also look at. Ultimately, what we are trying to do is really to make our businesses more efficient, faster, with a much lower transaction cost, which ultimately would benefit all our customers. Imagine today road tax renewals. If we are putting it on the blockchain, there is no more issues of you not being able to do certain things within certain point in time. You can do it right away, real time, and ultimately at a much lower cost. It's just one of the many use cases out there that we are exploring on. Ultimately, the company really wants to help the customers in Malaysia and outside of Malaysia to really get the best out of the money that they're spending on.
Thank you.
For us at Telecom Malaysia, it really started because of the business landscape, right? With competition really fueling and being a telecommunications service provider, it really became very, very important for us to figure out how to continue growth in terms of business and do it at a lower cost. Because as technology evolves, consumers are more empowered, they expect more from service providers, and connectivity today is like air, right? You just expect it. As long as you can breathe, you don't complain, but the moment you can't, all hell breaks loose. So that's what has happened to telecommunication companies. So as more and more people provide applications and services that uses a lot of bandwidth, it really becomes very important for Telecom Malaysia specifically to rethink itself and how to remain relevant in that new scenario, right? And hence why the going digital movement or transformation from within Telecom Malaysia. It really is about leveraging on digital to improve customer experience, really think of ways to optimize cost, and think of using digital means to create new businesses, right? And then blockchain for us is a chapter, right? In terms of how do we leverage it across these three themes of customer experience, cost optimization, and also new business.
Thank you.
It's a really interesting question. I kind of echo what the other two panelists have said so far. So I think what's interesting in the space, there are a lot of companies with blockchain solutions looking for problems to solve, when it should really be the other way around. I think as an established business, you have a vision, you have a purpose, you have customers to serve. So I think it's really looking at what you're trying to solve for, looking at the processes within that business, that value proposition, and really understanding how blockchain can be used as a tool to either make the processes more efficient or even better extract more value and deliver more value in a transparent and inclusive way for all of your users. So for us on the Catcher side, we've been in the media space for the last 20 years. We've seen a lot of the problems that different stakeholders within the media ecosystem go through on a daily basis. You know, issues like copyright of content, settlement of payments, user privacy, and control of how your data is being used. So on the Catcher side, we are trying to figure out how blockchain can be used to address all of those problems.
Thank you.
So I work for a business where our principal core activity is about licensing copyright. So to put things in perspective, we have about 100 million stock images that we've accumulated over the past 10 years. Principally, you know, when it comes to licensing digital rights, it's very important for us to have transparency, credibility, trust in terms of having the ability to audit the entire value chain, right? So on the point of, you know, why is a company like ours looking into blockchain? It's principally to increase the transparency of the way we do things, the efficiency in terms of how we can improve and optimize the whole process of licensing content from one end to another. And then thirdly, you know, what kind of new business models can we build on top of it? So the current thinking that we have at a group at the moment is, can we use blockchain and its promises, and of course, you know, its advantages and disadvantages, right, according to different constraints, to create a universal registry of assets from around the world, and then allowing and empowering different stakeholders to build additional distributed apps on top of this foundation that we intend to build.
Amazing, thank you. Now, what's going to really help this whole economy thrive is adoption. So how can established businesses, corporations, start to adapt to accepting cryptocurrencies, especially given that there's so many? Sure.
No, I mean, that's exactly the point, right? A company like Telekom Malaysia, GLC, managing communications for both consumers, enterprises, banks, the military, and so on. So just imagine how paranoid we are when it comes to control, right? When it comes to centralizing things, building our own infrastructure, everything we want to do ourselves. And that's causing why our costs are growing, right? So as much as we understand and appreciate the values that technology like blockchain offers, adopting it has been very, very challenging for companies like Telekom Malaysia. Yeah? Trying to be prudent, keeping the lights on versus continuous improvements, continuous innovation, it really is two different extremes. I mean, the CIO can get fired if our network goes down for a few days and we don't know what goes wrong. So hence why the adoption for companies like ours is slower. We prefer proven technologies, see other people become the guinea pigs. If it works, then we want to adopt it. But we know if we continue like that, we will never be able to push forward. So we see that we can use blockchain, for example, in terms of billing, right? We have to send our customers bills every month. If you really, really think about it, do we really need to? All the consumers need to know is how much to pay, and if they have a digital wallet, they'll just pay. Right? So those are the kind of radical questions that we're asking ourselves. But to try it on a real core process like that, oh man, that's so nerve-wracking. So the first project we undertook was not to do with telco. It was to do with the social responsibility that we had. We're quite big in terms of donations, collecting donations and what you call donating to bodies. So what we're doing is we're building around blockchain to figure out how best to manage donations. Because the problem statement when it comes to donations is that if I'm donating, a ringgit to WWF, I want to make sure that the panda gets a ringgit. Right? But that's not true, you know. Almost half of that 1 ringgit actually goes to managing the fund. So that's in terms of cost. The secondly is, how do I know that the panda even receives that 1 ringgit? For all you know, it went to some other animal. So that's what's going on in the minds of donators. So if we can really solve that problem using blockchain, which I think is very, very possible, then we will prove to ourselves that it works before we start working or using it for more core telecommunication processes.
Beautiful, thank you. Who's next?
I think from my side, so I think you brought up a really good point. Can totally understand all the considerations going through Telecom Malaysia when you're trying to decide whether to use blockchain or not. So I think internal education is a big thing. But I think once you've managed to get over that hurdle, one of the biggest assets an established company has is its network and how entrenched you are in an ecosystem. So I just give an example. One of the companies we own, so iFlix. So we're in 27 countries, more than 14 million users. We deal with 300 content producers. We're embedded with like 26 telecom operators in all those countries. So I think once we have convinced ourselves internally, we can then play a role in driving mass adoption of crypto by then helping our stakeholders, or the other players in the ecosystem, to get over the hurdle as well. And I think we are in a much better position to drive adoption versus a company starting out from scratch today with no network, with no track record, trying to drive adoption. I think it's easier for an established company to leverage the entrenched network you have globally to then drive adoption on a wider basis.
I love it, thank you.
I think I probably have a different perspective, taking a step back. I think, first of all, I myself believe in education, right? Using blockchain, using cryptos, in the past in Malaysia, it has had its own bad press. There are good news, bad news. Some may appear scammy and stuff like that. I think what we are trying to do as a company is, that's why I mentioned we are working on a blockchain academy, whereby we try to educate people what blockchain is and what it is not, right? We focus very much on students, right? In universities, we also open it up for startups, whereby we will also provide funding for people to actually build their products in the payment space, in terms of blockchain. In fact, one of the things that I also do is on e-wallet services, whereby we are actually exploring usage of all these different cryptos within this e-wallet itself, because there's so much competition out there. But of course, there are its own challenges from a legal and regulatory point of view. There are a lot of things that we need to do before we get there. It's a journey, right? It's not something that we will do overnight. To me, blockchain is, for companies like ours, it's an investment. It's a rather mid to long-term investment, whereby we need to grow a team of people, a talents, to actually start doing it and go out there in the market and tell people what it is and what it is not. It's not a scam, it's real, it's something that we need to adopt or get left behind.
Thank you.
To answer your question, Dana, I mean, what's holding back a lot of businesses from, taking tokens or crypto as a mode of payment, right? I think, you've got the standard technical issues, regulatory issues, financial issues, but the crux of it is actually, at the end of the day, a commercial call, right? So if, say, for example, as part of my value chain, my cost is in fiat currency, I have to pay my suppliers, my contributors in US dollars or Malaysian ringgit or Aussie dollar, right? And I would take, if I decide to take certain tokens as a form of payment, right? So it would assume, or it would be reliant on the assumption that I will be assuming the risk of the crypto to fiat exchange, right? So one part is, to what degree the business would want to assume a certain kind of fiat to crypto exposure, right? Second thing is now whether or not you can actually, your second part of the value chain will be willing to take crypto as a form of payment. So if I were to take crypto and I pay out my cost in crypto, that's absolutely fine, right? Because the other side will see a value in the crypto itself, right? So I think, that's the point I'm trying to make here.
Thank you so much for all of your insights. A round of applause for my esteemed colleagues. Thank you so much.